Hello you guys, it's Victoria. So in today's video, I wanted to share with you guys a little bit about my journey of teaching my baby Polish and all the challenges that we've encountered so far along the way. So even though you guys may not be teaching your children Polish specifically, many of my clients are raising children who speak 2 or 3 or even more languages than that. So I thought that this topic might be interesting to you guys, even though it's different than my typical video. So let's start at the very beginning. I was born in Poland and Polish is my native language, but I moved to Canada when I was just 4 years old. So even though Polish is in fact my native language, it's by no means my most proficient language. That would absolutely be English. So because I left Poland so early, I never got to attend any kind of formal educational institution there. I never went to kindergarten or nursery or anything like that. And even though I'm fluent in Polish, my grammar is by no means perfect, and my vocabulary is certainly not even close to as rich as my vocabulary in English. So as a speech-language pathologist, I appreciate that we should be passing along to our children a rich and strong language base. And this is where things get a little bit hairy for me because English is my most proficient language. So my vocabulary in English is much better than my Polish vocabulary. I don't make grammatical mistakes in English, but I definitely do in Polish. So I'm kind of in this tricky situation in which I really want to pass my native language on to my daughter, but it's not my best language. So in this video, I'm going to be covering with you guys 8 specific challenges that we've faced so far on this journey. So our first challenge is that my husband isn't Polish and that he doesn't speak Polish. So the language of the home is in fact English. So when it's just me and my baby, which that's the case for the majority of each day, then I speak to her exclusively in Polish, pretty much. We'll get to some kind of exceptions in a little bit. However, when my husband's around, obviously I'm speaking to him in English, and so naturally some of the things that I say to my baby switch to English as well because I want my husband to understand what I'm saying to her. The older she gets, the more mindful I am of this, so I do still try to really speak to her in Polish even when he's around. But if you think about the natural conversations and vocabulary and grammar and all that input that children gain just by existing in their native language's environment, my daughter's not getting that for Polish because all the adult talk that's happening around her is in fact in English. So I do have Polish family in the area, more or less. And I know that would seem like a really obvious situation in which I could expose my baby to natural Polish. But the truth is that many of my cousins and aunts and uncles actually married non-Polish people. So even at a family gathering that's from the Polish side of the family, a lot of the language spoken is English. And even if we're talking about a truly Polish-only interaction, there is so much code switching that happens as a result of having lived in North America. In my family, we're talking for over 30 years. So even the best Polish input that my baby is getting is riddled with English in the best of circumstances. Outside of a family environment, which, as we just saw, isn't perfect anyway, my child has very limited exposure to Polish in our community. I'd say almost nothing. So I mean, I do have a Polish neighbor and I run into him, I don't know, once a month, I'd say, given that it's winter and we're not outside very often. So in our local neighborhood, Polish is pretty much at 0, unfortunately. As my baby gets older, then I'll definitely consider enrolling her in one of those Saturday Polish schools in which she could get more Polish. But as things stand right now, it's pretty much nothing. Our next challenge has been finding Polish books that I really love. So even in English, I'm really particular about children's books. There's so much garbage out there. There's just so much junk. So in general, I want to find a book for my child that's really well written, that's beautifully illustrated, and that has some sort of a meaningful or positive message. And I'm not by any means saying that these kind of books don't exist in Polish, because obviously I'm sure that they do. But I have so much access to books in English. I have recommendations of family and friends. I can go to a bookstore and just browse around and really curate my collection to be exactly what I want it to be. But I don't have that luxury in Polish. So while I do have some Polish books, most of them really don't do it for me. So to give you guys an example, literally this did not take long to find some exact examples of what I mean. So a lot of Polish children's books, and granted, you'll notice that some of these are kind of more old school, but they are very angry, I'll say. So this book, Puszek, Miś Wędrowniczek, it starts out as a really adorable book about a bear and his mom, and they cuddle and it's beautiful, and they meet a family of bunnies, and I'm thinking, this is really sweet. Like, I have no problem with this, right? And then you get like 2 or 3 pages in, and an angry bee stings him, and then he falls and he ruins the beaver's dam, and the beaver is red with rage, and he says, "I'll show you." It's not that this is a Polish book, but this is just the Polish book that I have. I obviously wouldn't choose a book like this in English either, but this is one of the examples of a Polish book that I own, and it's really just not the kind of book that I want to be reading to my 1-year-old. So here's another example of a Polish book that I have. It's called Wiersze dla dzieci, which means poems for kids. So you think, wonderful. And I kid you not, guys, I literally opened the book to this page, and it's already about a boy named Gregory that's a liar. So again, very positive messaging. On the next page, we have Gabryś, who is stupid. Not exactly the type of message that I want to be sharing with my baby. Other than that, these books, you know, they rhyme, they have a nice rhythm, they have nice pictures overall, but it's not my ideal book if we're being picky. And I don't know if it's a personality thing or my background or what, but I am pretty picky when it comes to nice books. We have a beautiful collection of books in English that I really love at home. To give you guys a few very quick examples, Nancy Tillman, a lot of beautifully illustrated books with very positive messaging, really love it. Owl Moon, amazing book, gorgeous. Classic, Blueberries for Sal. We also have Make Way for Ducklings by him. I mean, I could go on, and like I said, it's not the fault of Polish books. It's the fact that I don't have access to Polish books to really find the ones that I love. And so as a result, obviously I read a lot to my child, but a lot of what she's hearing is in English. I do sometimes use a book in English and just kind of add the words in Polish, but I find that really takes away from the beautiful prose and how the book is written, and sometimes I'm just lacking the particular word, so I find that that's really not equivalent of owning a really well-written book. I do know that some of you guys watching are from Poland based on my YouTube analytics. So if you have any awesome book recommendations for little ones that you think I should know about, then please, please, please let me know in the comments below, and I would really appreciate that. My next challenge is that I don't have any recent exposure to Polish kid stuff. So obviously when I was a toddler, I'm sure I was exposed to a lot of this stuff, but I don't remember that. And I'm talking like nursery rhymes and jingles and all those kind of cute things that you do to interact with kids. I don't know those in Polish. I know them in English. I have nieces and nephews that kind of tell me what's cool and trending, and I've also worked in a daycare and in an elementary school, so I have a really good grasp of what's cool for kids in English, but not so much in Polish. And this is something that I've tried to look up on YouTube and on Google, but typically what you find is the highest ranking stuff, which by no means is the highest quality stuff. So that's just another challenge that we've faced, that a lot of the cute little songs that you sing with kids in my life are all in English as well. So the next challenge that I've faced is with vocabulary. So before I had a baby, I could speak freely in Polish, and honestly, I never really worried about using the perfect word for a situation because it was never really an issue. But now that I do have a child and I know that my output is her input, I'm really much more concerned about making the input count, making it specific, and making it really rich. So whereas before I'd have no problem saying, hey, could you pass me that thing over there? I'm a lot more mindful of that now, and I don't just want to call it a thing when it has a specific name that I want her to learn. So obviously this is very solvable, right? And I do look up a lot of words that come up, but in the moment, what do, right? If you're interacting with your child, I don't want to be pulling my phone out every second to look up every word I don't know. So sometimes I just use a non-specific word, which is fine, even though that's not what I'd optimally like to pass on to her. And sometimes I find myself inventing words because I'm kind of making my best guess. And when I check, I learn that my best guess was wrong. So to give you guys an example, I have a puzzle and there's a rhinoceros. So I was like, rhinoceros, rhinoceros. That's wrong. It's not a rhinoceros. That's a totally made up word. It's a nosorożec in Polish. So just a funny example for my Polish viewers out there. But obviously that's not ideal. You don't want to be making up vocabulary all the time when you're trying to teach your little one language. My next challenge is Polish grammar. Polish grammar is crazy difficult. It is so much more complex than English grammar. So even though my Polish is good, I do not have perfect grammar in Polish. And so I find myself in these situations. Sometimes I think I'm saying something correctly, and if I happen to have a family friend around who's kind enough to point it out to me, they may say, oh, you actually conjugated this tense wrong based on what you're saying. And other times I know I'm conjugating something incorrectly, or I don't know how to conjugate it. And so again, I'm caught in this situation in which I don't want to be already teaching my baby poor grammar, but at the same time, I'm aware that if I just change my sentence to simplify the grammar, then again, she's really not getting very rich input. So again, we're caught between a rock and a hard place. So the final challenge that I have is lack of culture on language. So obviously I know that's just a result of the fact that we don't live in Poland and that's our reality. And I know it's not the end of the world, but language is constantly evolving, right? So the Polish that was spoken in the 80s is not even close to the Polish that's spoken today. And I know this because I do watch Polish television once in a while at my grandma's, but I don't have enough input to know whether a given speaker is just like super cash or whether the whole population uses a certain expression. So we're lacking that true immersion that you can only really get by being in a specific place. So despite all these challenges, I'm gonna keep going strong with passing my native language on to my baby and just kind of hope for the best. I know that her Polish isn't gonna be perfect native speaker Polish, but I do want her to have the means to communicate and be able to express herself in Polish. It's really important to me. So now I'd love to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments below if you have any tips or suggestions, if you're raising kids with more than one language, and if so, how you're finding it and how you're doing it. So I'll be really eager to read your comments, you guys. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Bye. What? What?
I don't know if I hit the record button.
Really?
Oh no, I did. Okay. But I wasn't even joking. Can you imagine?
Did my face just go red?
Yeah, you're just like, I will murder you.
Oh my goodness.